Testicular testing. Testing 1 2. Yeah, sounds good. Oh. All right. Well, I have that over there, but let's do a proper cheers with the old fashioned.
Oh yeah, buddy. Thank you so much.
Do glad I am. Oh, well, air cheers. So yeah, that's fine. Stay in front of the mic. Air cheers.
Yeah.
But yes, I do appreciate that you like a good old fashioned.
Hell yeah. I do, man. This is a good one too.
Yeah, that was very self-serving of me. I appreciate the fact that you like old fashions. Doesn't mean mine was good.
Was that Knob Creek? Is that what that was?
Yeah. Because
Hell
Costco is a real. I mean, obviously, like one of my good places I like to go is Total Wine over off of Padden Parkway off of SR 500. There's a Total Wine.
Mm-hmm.
Great selection. I like it a lot more than Bevmo. They just have a really good selection. The employees seem to be actually happy about working there.
Bevmo.
Bevmo's over here by Target on
Yeah,
164th. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not bad, but I definitely like Total Wine better.
Yeah.
But Costco has some really good prices. They don't have all the liquor, obviously, but whatever liquor they sell, it's all good quality, and they have some really good prices.
I heard like a rumor like years ago that like the Costco brand alcohol, like the vodka was Grey Goose, and like it was like all like high quality stuff just in like Costco labeling. And I'll say that was genius marketing if it's false.
It's not false. That's so funny
Really?
because when I got hired at Costco, you go through orientation.
Mm-hmm.
And the GM, the general manager of the warehouse, was taking us on a tour of the store, and we walked by the liquor section. I was like, I just have to ask. I've heard this rumor, and same question. He was like, he goes, it's kind of true. Basically, what happened was the Kirkland brand bought a distillery right next to the Grey Goose distillery. So it's on the same river. They're using the same water. They're using the same recipe. It basically is Grey Goose.
Oh, sick.
Yes. So it is Grey Goose vodka.
Well done. That's good to know. I just don't like vodka.
Yeah, and they obviously make, they make whiskey. They make tequila. That's funny, too, because Pam, my wife, one time with her cousin Ann, and when Ann used to have a house over on Lake Billy Chinook, and they randomly did a blind tequila tasting, and they got 4 different tequilas.
Mm-hmm.
They were all good brands. Don Julio was one. I think Hornitos was one. And
Nice.
she brought a Kirkland tequila. The Kirkland tequila won.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Nice. Have you ever had like a really nice bottle, like $1,000 bottle?
Not that good.
Okay.
For Pam's 50th birthday, I got her. Was it tequila? I got her a really nice bottle of tequila. I forgot what it was, but it was like $90 or $100.
Yeah.
And then somebody got her a really good bottle of whiskey. No, I'm trying to think the most expensive tequila I've ever. Oh, it would be Don Julio 1942.
Nice.
Yeah, I've
That's
had
good.
but we've been at a bar, and I think the shot was like $35.
Okay.
We just got a shot neat and sipped on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best tequila I've ever had.
Nice.
Was 1942. Yeah.
I when I was working at Amangiri down in the desert, it was
In Arizona?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have like a gun? Are we going off? Is there like a buzzer? That means we've started.
We're recording. This is how I go in. There's no intro. I go
Okay.
in like Rogan does. We just start talking.
I didn't know if there's like a jingle or something.
No,
There.
hell no. This is just real life, man. We're going.
Okay. Well, because I was about to tell a story. And I'm
Yeah.
like, is there a chronological order that
No,
needs to
we're
take
just
place?
dude. We're just
or-
having a conversation.
Okay.
That's the best. I don't script this shit.
Got
And
it.
The conversation goes where it goes.
Okay. So I guess to give context, I was with the Aman Group for 8 years. And it's
What's it called?
Aman, AMAN.
Is this down in Arizona?
Yes, they have properties all over the world. Flagship property is in Singapore. They have 2 in the U.S. and they have 3 now. I think maybe even 4. They have 1 in New York now, but it's the most high-end resort in the world.
I was just gonna ask what is their business, but
Yeah.
but they have resorts all over the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the most like high-end business, like resort, like luxury resort in the world.
Do
the
they have
brand.
one in Tucson?
They don't.
Okay.
you know,
that's fine. No reason I ask is our friend Sean spent some time recently at a resort down there that he loved. I was just curious if that was one of theirs, but no.
No, it's like yeah, the one I was at, I spent the most time at Amangiri, and then I spent time at the Amangani, up in Jackson Hole, and so the Amangiri was the most expensive hotel in the U.S. and the third most expensive in the world.
Currently, or what year was this?
When I was there, it was. I think it still is.
Okay.
Just because that was kind of like a title they had.
Yeah,
and they continued.
It's almost like a Michelin 5-star restaurant. You have a title.
Yeah, and you just keep it going. So like that, the nightly rate, I don't know what it is now, but it was $5,700 a night.
And it was in Jackson Hole?
That was the one in Arizona.
Oh, okay. What part of Arizona?
Northern Arizona.
Like Flagstaff?
Southern Utah. No, it's
even
like,
north of that.
Yeah. So it's actually in southern Utah. It's in Canyon Point, Utah. Okay. But it's just outside Page, Arizona. It's right next
I
to
know
Lake
exactly
Powell.
where Page is.
Okay.
I've driven through it. Yes.
Yeah.
Over that awesome bridge that goes over the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
Scared the hell out of me
the
in a
Glen
truck.
Canyon Dam.
Yes.
Oh yeah. But so when I was there, you know, you had a lot of celebrities and you had a lot of like high class people.
So I'm sorry, maybe I missed this. You worked for them, right? Mm-hmm. Is that why you were there?
Yeah. So I was their activities director.
Okay.
For a couple of years, and the nice thing was, you know, you kind of got caricatures of people because it brought people in from all over, both the guests and the staff, because it was such a like desirable high-end place to visit, but also a desirable high-end place to work. And so, you know, like they had a spa, and so the fitness guy was this big Bulgarian guy named Svet.
Of course, his name is Svet.
Yeah, you know, and he had this like thick accent, and he was a bodybuilder. And then, you know,
I'm shocked.
We went through a couple different chefs, but our like most recent one was this Italian guy named Anthony Marazita.
Okay.
And you know, the director of F&B was this guy named he's from Colombia, Sergio Caceres, and like it just is like you get these like really again like
very diverse.
Yeah. And so what we would do a lot of times is, you know, guests would come in and they would bring a lot of their alcohol, or they would buy their alcohol, and then there was always some left. You know, they never finished it, and so you know, we would either go up to like his office.
So very well, and I'm sorry, I'm good at not interrupting, but there's details here I want to ask about.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I kind of launched
it's a
right
high-end resort.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a lot of, whether they're celebrities or not, there's a lot of people that are rich that go there. So, but they would come stay for a week or two or a few days, but they would bring their own stuff, and they wouldn't necessarily just buy it from, and they would leave stuff in the room.
Yeah, I mean, and they would, like, if you bought like you know, like I tried this $5,000 bottle of wine, you know, and it was so, and I'm going to butcher, I don't know what it was.
I'm assuming it was from Europe, France, maybe?
I'm sure of it. You know, like, I would think.
Was it a red or a white?
It was a red. And it was like, the way they decanted it, it was like, there was like the bottom, maybe eighth of it was just like sludge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like the decanting process was great and everything like that. But, you know, the value I think was because it was like had been in a cask for, you know, 100 years or something like that. And yeah. And so it's like you're drinking history. It was an experience trying that.
So have you seen the documentaries Psalm? There's
I haven't.
3 of them.
I haven't. Netflix really wants me to watch it. It's been
so the
feeding it
second
to me
one,
constantly.
Psalm Into the Bottle, is my favorite. They're all good.
Okay.
That's my favorite because it goes into the history of European wine, and they take you into the cellars where they've had bottles sitting in the cellars underground for 50, 75, 100 years.
Yeah.
So that must have been one of those kind of bottles.
Yeah. And I mean,
was
maybe
it
even older than that. It was wild.
Was it that amazing? Was it that different than, say, $100 bottle of wine that you can buy here?
I would say yes.
Okay, you noticed something different.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a refined palate at all.
Okay.
But it's like kind of the feeling you get when you like look at the Mona Lisa. You know, it's like I have no idea about art or art history, but when you observe something of such grandeur,
so you didn't have the luxury of tasting it blind. So maybe your perception, because you knew what it was, bled into your
potentially,
but it was still really fucking good, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest part of it was like. It's hard to describe. It just like made your mouth like felt like it hit receptors in your mouth that it's hard
that had never been triggered before.
Kind of. And again, it was like maybe less than a teaspoon of just like, Sergio was like pouring it, decanting it and everything like that. And he kind of like, cause like,
but everybody got just a little taste.
Well,
is what you're saying.
Yeah, the guests, like they, it was their wine. So they all shared. And I think there was a dozen of them or so. So they just had like, I think they brought alcohol that was valued, like that insured. I think it was like $60,000 to $70,000 just in alcohol.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so, but like, that was just kind of what happened down there. It was wild. Like, I mean, I could tell stories. And
this was at the Jackson Hole one.
Those are in the Arizona one.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. The Jackson Hole one was nice, but it really wasn't as nice as the Arizona one.
And was it a different, totally different crowd of people of rich people that wanted to go to that one versus Phoenix?
Yeah, actually,
Northern Arizona.
Yeah, a little bit. Jackson was more kind of leaning into like the Yellowstone rustic. Like
I was gonna say, did you have a lot of country music stars from Nashville?
No,
I
can't think of any. And I mean, honestly, if we had him, I wouldn't have known.
Or maybe just Harrison Ford and Kevin Costner.
Oh yeah, Harry was up there. I mean, he has a house in Jackson Hole, so
right.
He was always around. Actually, my best friend Jack actually lived next door to Harrison Ford.
In Jackson Hole?
Yeah. He was staying with a buddy. They were like living together, and it was his friend's grandparents' place. And it was this old homestead on Jackson Hole, like right on the Snake River. And next door was Harrison Ford, and like so he would go out, like fishing.
The Snake River does go into Wyoming there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah.
Because I always think of it as an Oregon, Washington, Idaho river, but it goes into Wyoming.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
A lot of fishing, lots of like people love the Snake River. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Well, because my wife Pam, she grew up. Her father. If you go over all the way to Eastern Oregon, right on the Idaho, Washington, Oregon border, every summer it was a thing where they would float the snake.
Yeah.
And it was like a week-long trip, and you would float during the day, pull out, camp for the night, get up and float more. So she spent Hell's Canyon.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They floated Hell's Canyon.
That's beautiful.
Every summer.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we floated pretty consistently living out there. And it would just kind of depend what stretch of the snake you wanted to do. You'd have to shuttle cars, and I mean, sometimes we would do it in like tubes and stuff, and just get like, drunk. Other times we would like run some rapids. But it goes through Grand Teton National Park. It also goes through Yellowstone, I'm pretty sure. But like, so we would just float through the park, and it was only a handful of tour companies that were allowed to actually float the snake in Grand Teton National Park.
Probably had to have permits, I'm assuming, or
not back then.
Okay.
Maybe you do now.
Yeah.
But we would kind of go like in the shoulder season, like October and stuff. So it all kind of like mellowed
so it wasn't
out.
crazy busy.
Yeah, and it was a great way to just like see a side of the park no one really gets to see.
Yeah.
Because you're not like on hiking trails with a bunch of people, and then the water is like where the great kind of communal gathering, and so you would see a lot of wildlife and waterfowl and stuff like that would come out. So you just kind of like go by, and I remember one year we floated it and started picking morels, and we got like 15 pounds of morels.
I've heard that term before, but
the mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah. And we just like hit it on the right day. We weren't even looking for them, and we nailed it. Like we had this big like kitchen table back at the house I was living in, and we like filled the whole kitchen table with morels. And we were just giving them away.
This is awesome because if you're doing like in October, obviously you don't have the rush of the summer crowd. The wildlife feels more safe to come out. You had a totally different experience where the wildlife isn't hiding because there's so many tourists in the area.
Exactly.
And it's an entirely different experience.
Mm-hmm. I would say my entire career has been in hospitality.
We're going to get into it. This is why I don't script it. I had no idea of this stuff that you did. And that's why I let's just start talking. And then every guest will start talking about stuff or bring up something from their past or a job they've had or where they lived. And I'm like, I had no idea. We're talking about this. This is fucking awesome. I love this shit.
This is cool, man. I'm enjoying it.
So by the way, I do have to, I can't remember, you listen to at least one or two of mine, I think, just to get a feel for it.
Definitely.
So I have to do the gratuitous shout outs.
Okay.
No Shoes Nation rules. All hail Tom Brady. Kenny Chesney is the man. And we're doing the tour this year. I have to give those shout outs because my daughter would not allow me to when I was on her podcast. So, yes. All hail Tom Brady. Patriot Nation. No Shoes Nation.
Okay, like with those ones, I'll.
So, anyway. Oh, I'm done with it. I just have to get it on record.
Did you see the roast? I still haven't watched the roast.
It was, oh my God. I told you. It's amazing.
You've seen it like a dozen times or something.
I've seen it. Stop it. Only seven times.
I love that, man. I walked into my sister's place the other day and her partner was watching it. And it's so funny because he's this kind of like roughneck from Colorado, worked in the oil fields and construction and did rockfall mitigation for a long time, but like a man of few words for sure. And I walked in and like Mitch is on the couch and I don't really he's watching something. I'm not like gonna dive into a big conversation, but I like go and grab something out of the fridge and I just hear him like and then it'd be like silent, be like
so like a subdued laugh.
Oh my goodness. But it's like that's the extent of his laugh right there. Like that's an equivalency of us like hysterically laughing.
So he was enjoying it.
He was loving it.
Oh
and
my
and
God.
I like walked around the corner and it's funny because he had the girls, so I have two nieces, and he was looking after them this weekend while my sister was at a yoga retreat, and so he was just like run so thin with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old all weekend. And so I just like go around the corner and he was like so frazzled all weekend. It's Sunday night, like the lights are off, it's just like the glow of the TV, and he's just like grinning and laughing, and the kids are asleep.
Big grim, but he was like
just like like, and it was like pretty funny, and he's like
this is pretty good.
It was great. So I was like, all right, well, if Mitch likes it, I'll check it out.
So okay, are you anti-Kenny Chesney or anti-Tom Brady? Because I feel like you just got a rash when I did that shout out. Is it the Tom Brady thing?
I think it's like everyone. Like he's just so good. It's hard to get behind him.
Why?
You love
I
to hate
appreciate excellence.
Yeah, but I'll say like, his tuck rule, like that's all I really know him for. I mean, okay, I know him because he was I'll say it, the greatest quarterback of all time.
Right.
Like look at the stats. Look at what he did with the Buccaneers. Got it. But like, there definitely was, I feel like, a involvement with the NFL really wanting to make this guy succeed, and really like he had amazing talent. There are plenty of times where like
I can see
certain things should have gone one way.
I can see people from the outside thinking that, but it doesn't really come through on the roast. But I also just watched because the Patriots just inducted him into their Hall of Fame.
I saw that. Yeah.
That was more of a real down-to-earth one. But if you listen to the players, famous Hall of Fame players that talk about him, he put in the work, man. He literally put in the work. So it wasn't that the NFL wanted to make him a star. Because have you seen his combine photo? He wasn't hilarious. He wasn't the picture-perfect NFL poster boy.
Yeah.
No, he put in the fucking work and dedication, and that's why he's so great.
Yeah.
So, but I also know there's annoying things about the, if he gets touched on the shoulder, oh, where's the flag?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But everybody does that. But everybody notices when Tom does it because he's so good. But every quarterback in the league fucking does that shit. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
Anyway, let's get off this. It's more about you. Back to you. So, by the way, we haven't done a proper introduction. So this is Rob. And I really appreciate you doing the podcast because I've been kind of on a dry run. I've done a few just random solo ones, like when I was house and duck sitting for my daughter or my stepdaughter or whatever. But I have a list of people that are like, oh yeah, let's do this, let's book it. Scheduling is the hardest problem.
Oh yeah, like, I mean it took us a couple of weeks to get me on this couch.
I have several people that want to do it, but it's been over a couple of months or maybe long. I'm trying to remember the last in-person podcast I did. It's been several months.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm tired of just doing solo stuff. And
yeah.
People don't want to just hear me talk because I'm full of shit. So, but no, I really appreciate you doing it. I'm glad it finally came together.
Definitely.
And yes, I have a few more on the hook. But
cool.
Yeah, let's get back into you.
Okay.
Most of your working career in hospitality, but like I have no idea, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah. Well, so I was born in the Gorge.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Stevenson.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, how granular do you?
Well, born in
Like,
Stevenson,
born
and
in
did you go all through high school there?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And Stevenson is the one where you go across the Cascade Locks Bridge and go right. That's
exactly
where Walking Man Brewery is.
Exactly.
That's Stevenson.
Yep.
So you were born and raised in that area, went all through high school there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, I guess technically Stevenson was like the big city growing up. I lived out in Stabler, Hemlock, which, like, so Carson is where Backwoods is.
Yes, I know where that's at.
And then if you keep going down Wind River Highway, you eventually hit another little town called Stabler.
Going north from Carson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So you're going up into the Gifford Pinchot.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I've been up there. I've been up to that lake that's up there. It's a Forest Service lake that you can camp for free, or almost free. What's it called? It's in that forest, but if you drive
there's a couple
straight north, it's not Lost Lake. Straight north, and then the road turns to gravel, and you have to go several more miles.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot what it's called, but it's a great place to camp.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you head up to like St. Helens. You go to St. Helens eventually if you take that road long enough.
But anyway, the town you were technically living in was a little bit north of.
A little bit north of Carson.
Okay.
I think my address was technically in Carson.
Okay.
But you know,
I see what you're saying. But Stevenson was if you wanted to go to town.
Exactly.
For the grocery store, it was Stevenson.
Yep. And like whenever you would tell people like around, you're like, oh, I grew up in Stevenson, even though it was like 20 minutes outside Stevenson.
Right.
But
But nobody knows where that's at.
Yeah, and most people don't know where Stevenson is. So it's like, but so like, folks were. You know, my dad was a forester for a long time, and then he started a biomass manufacturing company.
Okay.
Made wood pellets. He was one of the first like people to actually start making like wood pellets for like pellet stoves and
like Traeger
heating.
Stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. He.
But even back in the 90s, that was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Like wood pellet stoves.
Yeah,
just for heating your house.
He started in like late 80s, I want to say.
Okay.
Because he was working at a sawmill, and he was noticing that, so he left the Forest Service because he wasn't a fan of it, and he just got a job at a sawmill to like pay the bills.
Right.
And he was noticing that all the sawdust was just, you know, going to waste, and they were just giving it away, and they couldn't get rid of it fast enough. But so he went to his home show, saw that this pellet thing was a thing, and it's basically sawdust that goes through a drum,
just
and
compressed.
And so he got free like raw materials because he tacked onto this sawmill, and they were like, here, just have our sawdust. And so that's how he started the business and kind of grew it from there. And so my mom was a Vista volunteer. She also worked in the Forest Service, and then
she was a what?
Vista volunteer.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a at-risk youth, like get them in the woods and like type of thing.
So at-risk youth, and maybe in the summer, give them a week or several days in the woods. Like an outward bound.
Precisely.
Thing. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what she did. And so they met out in the Forest Service, and she eventually actually started working in Vancouver for the Community Foundation, which is like I mean, this is so boring.
No, it's not. This is the point of the podcast. This is not boring, Rob. This is the good shit. And by the way, you've heard it before. My disclaimer is talk about whatever you want to, but don't. I'm not trying to pry.
No, okay.
But everything about people is interesting.
Well, I'm an open book.
Okay,
and,
good. But
and like most people that grew up in like a small town and stuff like that, like I spent the majority of my life like learning to suppress emotions, and in the last couple of years, I've started going to therapy, and I've learned what feelings and emotions are. Yeah. So I'll probably start crying because I'm like a fucking
sure
stuck
we're both
pig
gonna
at
tear
most
up.
point.
But dude, you should share your emotions. And small town life is some of the most interesting shit ever.
Yeah. So we lived in a house that my dad built way out in the sticks on 30 acres of timberland, and that's what we have in the Gorge. It's all timber. Everyone works in the timber industry, and it was like a really it's just a small town feel. I knew the people in my grade.
Did he get that property and build after he quit the Forest Service and was working for the sawmill?
I think so. Okay. And actually, there's a cool story about that. Come to think of it. So one of the reasons why I started the pellet business was because the sawmill went under, and as the sawmill was going under, he wasn't getting paid. And so him and his buddy Jay Johnson, you know, they both worked there, and they were just basically kind of like grunts, like stacking lumber and stuff like that. And they weren't getting paid. And the, you know, owners were like, don't worry, like everything's, but they were running out of money.
Right. But they weren't telling their employees.
Exactly. And so the bank foreclosed on it, and they were like, went to work one day, and it was just locked up. And, and so they were like, what? And they're like, sorry, you know, it's out of business. Grab your stuff, get out of here. And so they left, and then they came back that night. I guess I can probably tell this. Like, but so he came back that.
Look, I can edit stuff, but
Okay.
it makes my job easier if you self-censor. So if you don't think you should, don't talk about it.
Well, I don't. It's sort of illegal.
I mean, are we talking about the 80s? No, but there's a statute of limitations.
Well, so they were owed, you know, hundreds or thousands of dollars that they never got paid.
Back pay, right?
Yeah, and so they left that day, and they came back that night, unlocked the gate, and took what they were owed in lumber.
Okay.
And so
That's fair.
yeah, and so they basically worked all night long loading up the trucks and driving it to their respective houses that they were building, because they were both building houses at the time. And and basically, like,
well, and by the way, they allegedly did this.
exactly.
Allegedly. There's no proof.
I don't
Does
know.
anybody have evidence?
I have no idea how my dad afforded
This could be fiction.
the old growth
We
timber.
might be making up stories to make the podcast
Allegedly,
more interesting.
right?
So allegedly they did this. There's no proof that they actually did. This might have been a wild story that your dad told you
Probably
one night.
he's known to do that.
All right. So anyway, continue.
But yeah, so basically they worked from sundown to sunup, getting the lumber they were owed, and then was able to build the house I grew up in from all of that reclaimed lumber for back pay.
On the 30 acres that was north of Carson.
Exactly.
Now, so your dad did he already have the property?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
he'd already bought it, and they were living in a trailer.
Okay.
Out there, and so
Got
they just
it.
had this.
So
like,
him
little,
and
like,
your
similar-
mom had already met. They were
Mhm.
together.
Yep,
Okay.
they had my sister. I wasn't alive at this point. I have a sister that's 3 years older.
Okay.
So
she's like 25, right?
exactly.
Sorry.
It took me a second. I was like, oh, yep, you're right. She's 25.
You were 22.
I choose to cut my hair like this. But yeah, so growing up out there was interesting for sure. You were alone a lot. You're by yourself. Like my nearest neighbor was a ways away, and you know, like going over to like friends' houses and stuff like that. Like you had to drive, or get someone to drive you. You know, like the kids that had like, you know, riding their bikes down a cul-de-sac type of thing. We just like didn't do. You know, it was like riding my bike on like gravel logging roads and stuff like that. And so from a young age, I was always like building forts by myself, and I was like building like you know, bike jumps and stuff like that.
Same. Oh my god.
That was like my two things.
And I'm like over 20 years older than you, but I was doing the same shit as a kid.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's a really good way to grow up, I think.
Yeah. And so, you know, growing up in that town, and then my folks split when I was like in 6th grade or something. My mom moved to Stevenson. My dad stayed in the house that he built. And then, you know, like elementary school was fine, middle school was fine, high school was good. You know, I didn't really take a lot of things seriously in high school, which I don't think a lot of high schoolers do.
I didn't. Yeah.
But I will say, like, I was able to get by. Like I was really into sports.
Yeah.
Like I loved sports, and that was kind of my biggest motivation to like keep my grades up and stuff. Was like,
so you could play.
Yeah. I didn't want my parents to get mad at me, but the other thing was like just so I could play. And you know, I played football and soccer, and you know, I dabbled in track. I dabbled in weightlifting. You know, I wasn't really like good at either of those, but I would say like when I went to college, like as soon as I graduated.
So where'd you go to school at college?
Well, Western Washington University.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that was like a big thing for me too, because you know it was just kind of known. Was
that remind me? Is that Bellingham?
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's beautiful up there.
Yes,
and
it is.
it's at the foot of Mount Baker, and that was a big motivation for going there, was skiing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I'll say when I went to college, I got slapped in the face pretty quick of like
with reality,
like, hey, you know, you're not the high school quarterback up here. You actually have to study. No one gives a fuck if like you like.
Yeah, you're
smile.
actually paying us to be here. We don't care if you study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's like you can fail.
Yeah.
You know, like
We're
you're not
still
going to be
getting
able
our
to.
money.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to talk yourself out of this. And so
Yeah.
the end of my sophomore year, I was actually academically dismissed because I just like failed too many classes.
Yeah.
And you know, and I was on my own and I was partying and I really wasn't taking things seriously. And that was my first like big, like, all right, dude, like let's figure this out. And so
Like
I went to a
kind of a
community
little
college.
bit of a reality check.
Oh,
almost.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Went to a community college and, you know, went there for the agreement was like, okay, we'll consider letting you back in. Where you go to a community college
In Bellingham.
in Bellingham is
Okay.
Whatcom Community College for a
Okay.
semester. If you can get like a 3.5 or better, go
we'll
for
let
it.
you back in.
Yeah, and so I got like I think it was like a 4.0.
Nice.
But it was like that needed to happen. Like I was going to all these business classes and I was just really like trying to like do something I didn't care about. And then I was also teaching snowboarding at the time at Mount Baker, and all my coworkers were in the recreation college. And so that's where I eventually got my degree in ecotourism. And they were telling me about all the cool stuff they were doing, all the travel, all the analytics, all the like comparative analysis of this, like, you know,
Ecotourism
Yeah.
was a degree
mm-hmm.
at Western Washington.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I switched my degrees when I got back into school, when I got readmitted to Western.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, trying to be like a business executive, which I for some reason thought was like what I needed to do, was just not working.
Well, that's what
And-
society tells you. Get a business degree, you'll be fine.
Exactly.
I know.
And then, you know, get your MBA and then you'll get a
Yes.
job anywhere.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, and guess what? You'll also be fucking miserable.
And you'll be in
Like-
debt forever.
Mhm.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that was like, you know, I was able to switch majors, got into this other college at the same university, but it was amazing. And so got a degree in ecotourism, and then when I graduated, I got picked up by the Amon Group instantly.
The resort. The
Yeah.
resort. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so I did that. I was with them for 8 years at 3 properties. You know, it was cool because I shipped down to
So
Arizona.
did they send recruiters out to find students that might? How did you get connected with that?
I got
company?
really lucky. So, part of to get my degree, I had to do an internship, and one thing I was actually talking with Ame about this the other day, and I was like, I noticed my entire life has been like, so I've moved around a lot,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
And it's a lot of life decisions of where I move to next. It's always been the base of a mountain, like which mountain range do I want to live in, which mountain do I want to live at, and so when I was looking at colleges, I was like, sick, Mount Baker.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a school there, awesome, and I applied and got in, which was super lucky because it's a pretty hard school to get into, but
yeah.
somehow got into it. But then when I was like had to do an internship, I did my normal thing where I was like, what mountains do I want to go live at for a summer? And then I was like, the Tetons. And so then
Duh.
yeah, and so then I got a job on the Idaho side of the Tetons at a place called Teton Springs,
Okay.
where I was working at a
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me let dumbass in.
Aw, Rishi girl.
Come on. Okay, then you're not coming in. You wanna come in? I'm not fucking with you. Get in. We're not playing the game.
Oh, she's being all coy.
Cats, dude. Like comedians make jokes about that.
She's being a little flirt. Hi, Rishi.
So we're gonna get back to your story, but I'm gonna make this comment.
Mhm.
Literally, I am a stand-up comedian fan. I have heard comedians from the 80s until now make jokes about fucking cats, where they will they paw at the window at the door, and then you open it, and then they do this thing where like, no, maybe I don't want to come in. And
Oh, I love
like,
it.
They start being coy.
Mhm.
I'm not playing that shit. I'm not playing that game. So anyway, Ame, sorry, I was nice to her and I let her in. I fucking hate that
For
cat.
the record.
Anyway, so you
So I moved to the Teton Valley.
and it was for an internship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was working in a hotel there. It was just a little lodge
But
and
not
spa.
the
No,
rich
not
one.
the, not the
Okay.
Amangani. And I think it was the director of rooms. Might have been the director of operations. This guy named Brett Borchell. He was my like direct boss. And when I left, he was like, "Look, we want you to come back and work here once you graduate. You know, we have this position available
Was it
for
just
you."
a summer internship?
Yeah, it was just summer internship.
And what was your position or duties there?
I was the front office manager or something like that. It
Okay.
was, I was over like the front desk staff and the reservations and the bellman. And, I was 22, 23. I knew nothing about management. I knew nothing about managing people. But, for whatever reason, he was like, cool, I want you to come back.
He saw potential.
Yeah, I think I would assume so, maybe.
Yeah,
for some reason, he invited
obviously
me to
he
come
did.
back.
Yes, just say it. It's
okay. And so, and I think from like the jump, like if I look back my entire career, there's always been this like almost like a toxic motivation that just sort of like runs through me. And it's through my sister, it's through my dad. It's this like desire to like really, like, if you do something, like, you do it well. And you grew up.
I don't think that's toxic. That's called a work ethic.
It can be though. Because you like, I don't say like, this is something I talk with my boy Ruben, my therapist.
Yeah.
I tell him like it's tough for me because like you can always do better. And so to have that calibration in your mind of like well, this thing happened, but I can always do better. Like, so a good example is I got really into like endurance races and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was running like triathlons and marathons and things like that. And I had to stop because if I got, let's say, 5th or 4th or 3rd or something like that, I would have no joy. I would say,
okay,
I would say there's 3 people that wanted it more than I did. There's 3 people that tried harder than I did.
But that was the spin you put on it.
Exactly.
Even though it wasn't true, it wasn't that they tried harder, but that's what you were telling yourself.
I mean, I still think
no, stop it. Stop it. That's not what it was.
You're right.
But that's what you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
I get it.
But so it's toxic because I love doing that, but I don't do it anymore because my brain gets me up at 4 a.m. and says you have to go run or you're going to fail. And it says like, okay, you were supposed to do this mile in X amount of time and you did an X amount of time, you're failing. Like, why are you? And so when it comes to like work ethic and stuff like that, when it comes to like jobs, it was great. Like being able to like have people invite me back or like be like, wow, let's keep you on staff. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, we would hit goals or reach goals and I would feel no joy because I would be thinking about the next thing. I would be thinking about how we could have made more money or doing things like that.
So what you're working on probably currently is finding balance. I mean, definitely you don't want to lose that drive, but you also need to learn how to appreciate the wins.
Right.
Because you have wins and it's okay to soak those up and take a moment to say, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
And I'm good. Now I want to better myself. I'm always looking to improve.
Right.
But the fact that maybe I was 5th doesn't mean I'm not trying.
Yeah.
It's not a failure.
Yeah. I always think of it's just stuck with me, but like Derrick Rose when he won the like MVP. And I mean, like Derrick Rose, like who even remembers that name?
I do. I know who you're talking about. With the Bulls. With the Bulls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I remember when he they were like interviewing him and he was like, why can't it be me? Why can't I be the best player in the NFL, in the NBA? Why can't I be the MVP? Like, why not me? And it's so funny that that's resonated so deeply with me because it was the first time I've ever heard somebody say what I was feeling in such like definitive words of like, why is that guy finishing why is he across the finish line before me? We have the same legs. We have the same cardiovascular system. We have the same.
No, you don't. No, he has a different body structure. He has a different cardiovascular capacity than you do, of course.
Right. But we're still pumping the same blood. We're still breathing the same air. We're still.
I think I'm seeing where you're messing up here. No, you're not the same. He has different genetic gifts that you might not have, or you have gifts that he might not have. Everybody's different.
Yeah. But so I've kind of had to like sort of bridle that a little bit.
Because you want it. It's good to have that drive.
Yeah.
And it's good to. It's really good to want to strive to do something better, to be better every day.
Yeah.
As long as you don't beat yourself up when you don't necessarily meet that expectation every day.
And I think because
it's okay to be human, Rob. It's okay to be
human. Well, it's like setting realistic expectations and like being like, okay, if I want to be first, if let's say I want to be first in this one race, like work up to it. Maybe try to get in the top 3 for X amount of races. Maybe try to do this. Maybe try to get there. And then when you actually finally get there, like allow yourself the joy and allow yourself the ability to be like, you know, because knowing myself, it would be like, oh, well, this was a race with a bunch of schlubs. Like I should be winning races with elite athletes. Like this is kind of a crazy thing to be talking about right now because
it's okay.
It's pretty deep in the memory bank.
But so it's almost about allow yourself to have grace for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. That's actually what my boy Ruben talks about a lot too. So it's something
I've only been in therapy for over 8 years, so you're probably going to hear me say things that Ruben says.
Hell yeah. Well, that's good. That's helpful for me.
Hallelujah to therapy. Yeah, it's been actually very helpful for me.
Oh my God. I started it a year ago.
And it's awesome. And by the way, it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight.
No, man.
Stick with it, man. I've been with my personal therapist, Lindsay, for over 8 years. And me and Pam have been seeing Robert for over 2 years. And we've also gone through several couples therapists before. But Robert's awesome. But anyway, yes.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as I like to compare it to exercise. You don't ever stop doing it.
Right.
You know, it's meant to be. You're always working on your physical body.
Yeah.
You want to be healthy. You exercise, and your mental health is just as important. So it's okay to
For
keep.
Sure.
Now, granted, I'm lucky because I work at Costco. I have great benefits, and I can afford to have I have this. I've said this on the podcast before, where I'm like, it's a running joke where I'm like, I keep expecting my insurance through Costco to call me and say, "Are you fixed yet? Can we stop paying for this fucking therapy?" But they can't do that.
Yeah.
Because if they call me and say that, and then I kill myself the next week, they're gonna get sued.
Boom.
I'm sorry, bad joke, but
yeah. I know what you mean. It's like, yeah, I look at it that way too, and I'm like, why do I spend so much time going to the gym and like, you know, eating organic food and like, you know, taking care of myself if I'm completely neglect my brain.
Right.
And so I'd say that's been like a huge thing for me is just the introduction of like mental health, because I think like most people, you know, you're like, well, that's not for me. Like I didn't have trauma. Like I wasn't beaten. I wasn't molested. I wasn't like you know, and you almost like box trauma into these like things where it's like, well, no, everyone has trauma and everyone has things they need to work out.
That's what I was just going to say. Look, God bless. And I'm not trying to be dramatic about it. Because not everybody, you know, was beaten or abandoned or whatever. But yes, you still have trauma. It's not that your parents or the people in your life when you were a kid were bad people. But, God, how do I sum this up? Because my daughter has talked about this, and I've talked with her about it. It's about breaking the cycle.
Yes.
We always want.
Yes, that's a really good point.
We should. A lot of people say that we want better for our children than we had for us. But then now I'm censoring myself. Every generation has their things that they went through and their perspectives on life.
Yep.
But I should want the next generation, my daughter's generation, to do better than I did. And to learn from my mistakes so they don't repeat them.
Precisely.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I want her. I accept the fact that I had. I had so many flaws as a father to her. We're very close, but I had a lot of flaws, and I'm like, I don't want you to repeat that cycle. We should. And I'm not threatened by the fact that she is learning a new path. I like it.
Yeah.
But I also am empathetic enough to understand that it can be hard for the previous generation to hear, because it's kind of an indictment on how they were raised. But I also am like, well, there should be an indictment on how we were raised, because we can do better. Like cars didn't used to have shoulder belts. It was just a lap belt.
Right.
That's called progress. Let's do that. There didn't used to be a helmet law for motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a fucking helmet law. We were too stupid to realize that we should wear helmets when we're riding motorcycles. So we're so dumb we had to make a fucking law to tell you to do it because you're too stupid to figure it out on your own.
Right. Right.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm
wild,
not trying to take it over, but
it's I think that's a really good point. Just as like wanting to create a better world, and I feel like that really starts with a lot of addressing people's mental illness and mental health. And I don't think you have to have an illness to need health. I think like everything, like, you know, you don't have to be eating shitty food to say I need to be eating healthy food. You just have to be like able to like differentiate between the good things and the bad things. You know, it's like I'll eat ice cream and whatever, but I'll also have a salad. It's like, you know, I'll have times of doubt and insecurity and criticism of myself, but I also have times of like working on that and working on, you know, getting over the trauma and getting past it. And so,
well, and I also think that it's become such a buzzword. When we talk about this stuff, I'm not trying to play the victim card. Now, here's where it gets dicey, because there are so many people out there, a lot of people out there with the advent of social media and everybody's connected now, that are playing victim cards when they're actually not victims, which muddies the waters.
Yeah.
But again, it's like it's okay to be healthy, and it's okay to talk about the fact that, you know, growing up, you know, there was some trials and tribulations, and you know, my childhood, I went through some fucked up shit, but I also had a great childhood, and parents that cared about me, and siblings and family and friends.
Yeah.
So it's not a threat. It's not an indictment on how I grew up for the fact that my daughter is trying to change the paradigm.
Yeah.
I don't get threatened by that because I want it to be better for the next generation.
That's good, because it's hard not to. I think a lot of times, like, you know, telling someone, especially like telling someone in your family, like your mom or your dad, that you're going to therapy, you know, it's instantly like this, like,
that should not be a stigma.
Yeah, but you know, to a point, it's like, oh well, did I not do good enough? Well, did I not do? And it's like,
this is not about you.
It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with like me wanting to like understand why I can't feel.
I'm gonna pause it and make us another old fashioned.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank God I learned how to pause this. We are back on.
All right, where were we?
Well, we're going to go back to your working career, because I was seriously interested. Internship, the guy was like, you can do this.
Yep. It was like, we want you to come back. And so
this was in Jackson Hole.
Yep. And it was on the other side of the Teton, so it was a little town called Victor, Idaho.
Okay.
But it's like 30 minutes from Jackson. It's just over the Teton Pass. But so when I graduated, we were like in touch. I was like, buddy, I'm ready to come back to the valley. And he's like, oh, you know, I took a job somewhere else. And I was like, okay. And he's like, but I still really want you to come down. Let's have you interview for this position. The name of the company is the Amon Group.
All right. Okay.
And, you know, and I knew nothing about it. I never heard of them. And he's like, this property. So, you know, they have a bunch of hotels. They have like 30 hotels, but they all like open them, you know, they add them, they take them away. So this one was a brand new one. They had just finished construction like 6 months before I got there.
And where was it?
I was in Page.
That was the Page one. Okay.
Yeah. And so worked there as a front desk agent, just, you know, kind of rudimentary, working my way up. And so I was just a front desk agent. There was nothing really special about my job. But because it was such a new property, they had all this like new stuff that the owners had purchased and weren't really utilizing. And one of the things was a telescope. It was a big Dobsonian 10-inch telescope. It was maybe like 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And at the time, our events manager, this lady named Sarah, yeah, she was really hot. and
I didn't move for that reason, but I'm glad we got that on mic. Anyway, go ahead.
You know, I'm like early 20s or something. And I'm like, just kind of like flirting with her, and she like mentioned something about this like telescope, and I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, and we have a telescope. And we don't have anyone that knows anything about astronomy to run it, and like it's just wasting space. And I was like, I know about astronomy, and she's like, really? Like,
okay, but
do you want to run the astronomy
I was
program?
going to say, growing up outside of Carson, you had a beautiful sky that wasn't polluted by light. Is that where you learned astronomy? Or?
No, it was actually a bold-faced lie.
Oh, you were bullshitting. No way. I'm shocked.
I knew nothing about astronomy.
But you learned fast, I bet.
My goal was that the day that I had to do the lecture. So basically, she was like, "Do you want to be our on-site astronomer?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I do." And she goes, "Great. So you'll be hosting astronomy nights 2 nights a week. I'll be there." And so like I was just being a dumb 20-year-old.
No,
and so
sounds like you were being amazing.
So I was like, so those days I would start the astronomy nights at like 9 p.m. or something when the sun went down, but I would get off work at 3. And so from 3 to 9, I would go to the library, the public library in Page, and I would just study astronomy.
Oh my God.
And I would research like what's happening in the sky tonight. And so like then I would show up and be like, oh, so the Pleiades meteor shower is happening. It's roughly 5 billion light years away. And like, it's just like.
That is fucking amazing. I am so impressed.
Yeah. And so.
But you put the work in. You had
exactly.
a line of bullshit, but you put the work in.
Right. And so it was like, because I wasn't satisfied being just like a front desk agent.
Right.
But then what that allowed me to do was, because I started this program and it started to get like a lot of like notoriety, because it was like, you know, brand new hotel, has all these amenities. One of which is like an astronomy program, you know, run by Rob Sorick. And like, again, I don't know how I got away with it as long as I did, but like, like one of the sects of New York Times called me and interviewed me about astronomy. And
somebody from the Times?
Yeah, it was a UK based Times though. It wasn't like the US Times. It was like the UK Times.
Right. They have an office there.
Yeah. But so they were running like an article about the Alamogiri, and they interviewed me for it. And it started to like, the astronomy program started to like build and like gain speed. And so then we upgraded our telescope and we did all this sort of stuff. And again, mind you, I know nothing about astronomy this whole time. I'm about a year in. And by now, like I've done enough like cramming of knowledge that I have a little bit of like knowing what's happening. And then the opportunity to start a program at Amagani in Jackson Hole presents itself. And I'm like, well,
Is that because, well, you were already working for the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're on the inside. You see internal openings, and hey, we have this opening at Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
The assistant general manager actually came down to do what's called task force at Amagiri. So they like, you know, come down and they train and they teach and they, you know, basically it's a way sister properties sort of keep continuity through the company.
Right.
And she came down. She was an amazing woman. Her name is Yuko Brookover, and she's just incredible. I love her. And while she was down, I was like, hey, I would really like to come work at Jackson Hole. I bring with me like X amount of years of working the front desk and managing people, but also this astronomy program. I can start there. And
yeah, I'm basically an astronomer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she's like, go for it. And I applied and got a job up there. So packed up, went up there, put together a bid to buy like telescopes and stuff like that.
So are we 23, 24? How old are you now?
I think 24.
Okay.
I think it was about that. It was like 2013, maybe. Yeah, and so I move up there so I can ski, and I fall in love with Jackson Hole. And it was right about that time that I actually met my ex-fiance, and we were together for about 10 years, and she was living in Flagstaff at the time, and I moved up there, started my job. I was there for about a year and a half, and then she eventually moved up and moved in with me.
Okay.
When she moved up there, and we did long distance for like a year and a half, which I strongly advocate for, because you take a relationship and you do a couple things. You see like what the commitment level is of both people, right? Because you're a voice at the other end of a phone. There's not a lot of physical. There's not a lot of like anything else other than just getting to know the heart and the core of a person,
right,
through calling them. And you know, we would see each other once every 6 weeks but that's how our relationship really started. and then she moved up, and from then on, worked in Jackson Hole, and that was like, I would almost call them my golden years. Like skiing every big line I possibly could in Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
Climbing every peak I possibly could in Jackson Hole, like the Tetons, going up into Yellowstone, down in the Wind River range.
Yep.
I mean, it's just God's country. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
I love it so much. And then an opportunity. So then I would say about 4 years in, Ayla's working as the, and that's my ex-partner. She's working as a conference services manager at a hotel, and there's a position that opens up at Amangani to be like the groups and events director. And so she has no interest in working at the same place as me, or does she have interest in working at Amangani, but she just goes to try to get the job to leverage more money at her current job.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so she goes and
they
interviews
offer
with them. They actually say, we don't, like, you're overqualified for this. We don't have a position for you that's going to be able to pay you what you need. But our sister property, Amangiri, might have something. Do you want to interview for that? And she's like, sure, why the hell not? And so they interview her, hire her instantly. And then they say, she's like, well, Rob needs a place to stay, like the place to work. And they go, oh, Rob, like, we'll put him as their activities director. Like,
we got a place for him.
And technically it was the experience team. So we didn't call ourselves, but it was like concierge on crack. Is basically, it's like the best way to put it. So like when someone's coming, you're talking to these people that are just worth buku dollars.
Right.
And generally you're not talking to them. You're talking to their travel agent, their personal assistants, things like that.
Yes.
And you're creating an experience for them. And we realize it's more than activities. You're actually selling an experience. And so I interviewed for that position, which just opened up, and I was able to get it. And so both of us were like, neither of us want to leave Jackson Hole. We have still so much to do here. We still have so much to accomplish here. We don't want to leave, but and then we just kind of had our punch list. X amount of dollars, X amount of benefits, X amount of and then if we do get the jobs, we'll be there for 3, maybe 4 years, and then we'll come back. And so that's what we did. And they like hit all of our boxes, and we were like, well, we now don't have a reason not to. I remember we were both camping. We were camping at Shadow Mountain, looking at the Tetons, and we both got calls on our phones when we got back from a bike ride. We had missed calls from Amangiri, and they like offered us the jobs.
So Amangiri was back in Arizona?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so then we decided to pack everything up, move down there, bought a house, got a couple dogs, Freckles, as you know.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And then worked there for about 4 years. And
so that was the one where it was, because I want to do a little bit of a dive on this. That was the one where you're dealing with creating an experience for very high-end people.
Right.
Okay. No names.
Yeah.
But part of the experience was when they show up, like everything is catered and ready to their specific expectations, where they don't. It's almost like the experience for them is exactly. They never have to be out of their comfort zone.
Right.
Everything they would possibly want, whether it's a specific bottle of water or a specific appetizer plate. Or, I mean, it's all ready and it's on time when they expect it. Is it that in depth? I'm asking. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like, you're hitting the nail on the head. I would say, like, imagine if money were no object, what sort of questions and what sort of engagement you would ask me to create experience in this living room for me to enjoy. Like, what would you ask about myself? What would you ask about what I was trying to learn or what I was desiring this? And so let's get out of this living room and let's say like a vacation to a place that you've never been before. And then let's say, I'm the CEO of a Goldman Sachs and I get a handful of days off.
We're saying theoretically.
Yeah. Like I get a handful of days off every year to spend with my family. This better be
everything
good.
Has to be
like,
fucking perfect.
Like
down
I have no
to
problem.
the color of the napkins that are on my dinner table.
Oh yeah. So like celebrities have what's called a writer. And
I know what that is. Believe me.
Yeah. And so like
bands have writers too. I know.
Hilarious, man. Like some of the stuff.
Some of the fucking shit that's on writers.
Yeah.
gives comedians so much material. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh, but that was kind of it. And so you just basically like, so I had a staff of about 6 to 7 people, and when I would bring them on, I would say, look, the way we're going to structure this is like, if you have a friend visiting, if you have a family member visiting, that's the way I want you to treat Leonardo DiCaprio. That's the way I want you to treat, you know, Kim Kardashian. Like, you know, it's not that they're above you or anything like that, but they're coming completely blind, and you're an expert, and you are going to curate like this beautiful experience for them based on the probing questions you ask them of, what do you want to get out of this experience? What would the ideal vacation look like? But
they have personal assistants and managers that can give you all this information ahead of time, so it's ready to go when they get there.
Oh yeah, and the interesting thing was, so coincidentally, when my job and my position, like, it was created to basically scratch this itch and get everything needed for most people, you know, but the 0.1% of people, you know, the really high name people came in, they would actually outsource it to Ayla, my previous partner, because she was the groups and events manager, but she was also the director of VIP sales.
Okay.
And so, like, you know, there would be times, we had one time in particular when we were eating dinner. It was like 8:30, and we had VIP guests coming in the next day, and we get a call from their assistant, and they go, we need a $10,000 flower arrangement in their room tomorrow when they arrive.
Was this in Jackson Hole?
This is in Page.
Page. Now,
Yeah.
do you have a florist you can call that can do that?
We had flowers on private jets from Phoenix and from Las Vegas.
You had to fly the fucking flowers in to get the $10,000 arrangement.
Dogs in.
Oh,
we flew. I mean, like,
we're not judging. I'm not judging.
No,
this is just interesting.
It was wild. And no, so it's 8:30 p.m. The guests are getting there the next day at noon. Those like $10,000 arrangement of, and I mean for anyone that's listening, they could figure out who it is, but it was like white roses was her thing, and her then husband always gave her white roses, and this was a big stay for them.
And by the way, I was going to say, look, we are seriously not judging this, because I want to go back to the point of how much was the night there?
$5,700.
Yeah, $5,700. So if somebody's willing to pay that, they better get the fucking VIP experience. If I'm going to pay $5,700 a night, you should fly in flowers from Phoenix and LA.
Right. And
I'm not judging.
No.
I'm just interested.
Yeah. Well, with these people, you know, and we've always joked, I'm like, this would be the best coffee table book, because
right.
I mean, the stories that I can't tell because of NDAs and things like that.
Right. Of course.
But all of the stuff on this podcast that I can't say would be hilarious, like things you can't even imagine.
Well, you have to write it as a fiction book and change the names and locations. And
exactly.
Write it as fiction.
Yeah, and then have like a ghostwriter and not put my name.
Yes.
All that, but no, I mean, hilarious stuff. Absolutely hilarious. And
so this is all fake. This never happened. But what are some of the most over-the-top, ridiculous requests you had to fulfill?
Let me think.
And this never happened. This is all fantasy.
There was a lot of drugs that I never fulfilled, but there was a lot of requests for drugs.
Requests for, like, coke?
Yeah, it was mostly
I'm assuming
coke
was mostly because they're not doing heroin.
No.
It's like coke and pot. Probably.
Yeah, it was mostly coke and
maybe mushrooms.
Mushrooms, a lot of mushrooms.
Yeah.
But I would always just tell them, you know, I'm like, I would ask somebody in Vegas. We're 4 hours from Vegas. We're a 45-minute flight.
Right.
Like, go check there. And sometimes they would, you know, but a lot of times too, like, if they're going to think about it, they're going to bring it with them. If
right.
They're, you know, looking
if they're on a private jet, they can pack that.
Exactly.
They're not going.
They're coming in the middle of the desert,
yes.
asking me for coke. Like, yeah, sorry, bud. Like, I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, like $10,000 flower arrangement. It's like
that you had to fly the fucking flowers in.
And what I would always tell my staff too is this: I would be like, we're the best. There's no hotel. There's no nothing. There's no one better than us. And so, like, so if we don't do it, who would? If we're not gonna fly.
By the way,
these flowers
if we can't do it for you, you can't get it done.
Precisely.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's like when you get in the 0.1%. it's like you realize truly everything has a price. Every like it's just a matter of how much money you're going to throw at this thing. But
right.
And that's a double-edged sword. That's like good and bad. But the liberating part of it is you could create these experiences that were like truly magical for people.
Right.
And that's ultimately what I really love doing. Like one night I was over at my spa director's house, this guy, Anthony, and he had this, really nice big house, and he had this garage door. He had a pool table in the garage. We'd put up the garage door and shoot pool, drink beer, and just like, look out over the lake. And the other thing down there, if you haven't been, you've been, it's amazing. Like
Page.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like Lake Powell is stunning.
Oh yes.
And like
they write songs about it.
It's bizarre how beautiful that place is, and it's just so picturesque and so perfect, and I miss it. Like I still actually own a house down there. I don't think I'd ever be able to live back down there, but it's really a special place. But so we're like looking over the lake, sun is setting, and we're looking at this spot called Tower Butte. And Tower Butte is this freestanding monolith. It's 1,000 feet tall.
Okay.
And it's only accessible by helicopter. There's two guys that climbed it.
You can't drive to it.
Nope, can't drive it. Two guys climbed it back in the 80s.
Like free climbers?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
But like those were the only other way. Those are the only people have done it. Otherwise, you have to land a helicopter on it.
Right.
And Grand Canyon Airlines got the permit from the Navajo Nation because it's a sacred spot to land helicopters on it. A couple years before. And I was talking to Anthony, and I was like, dude, if I can get a full helicopter to land up there, can you put a yoga instructor on there? And and
where did this come from? The idea?
I just like doing interesting, weird shit.
Oh,
and so
I'm sorry. This wasn't for like a high-end customer.
No, it was.
This was your idea.
It was my idea, but I was just like thinking. I was looking.
You're trying to create the experience.
Yeah, it was sunset, and I was like,
yes,
this is amazing. But the problem is, the helicopters can't fly from official sun up to official sundown, and so I was like, at sunrise,
they can't fly at night.
No.
Okay.
But I was like, if we fly the helicopter out at sunrise, it's maybe 2 minutes to get from the airport to our helipad. If we load the guests on with a yoga instructor, with crystal bowls, they fly out to the,
That sentence is fucking hilarious. If we fly the helicopter out at sunset, it's only 2 minutes with the yoga instructor.
Yeah.
No, I love that sentence.
Yeah. And
anyway, finish the story.
and so, like, the ideal, the vision was like doing sunrise yoga on top of this freestanding monolith, only accessible by helicopters.
It's fucking amazing, actually.
Yeah, and they do 45 minutes of yoga, and they do a 15-minute meditation crystal bowl sound bath.
Yes.
And then they fly back, and it's 5:30 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
And we did it, and it was just one of those things where it was like, I got the thumbs up from him, I got the thumbs up from the Navajo Nation, I got the thumbs up from the airline people,
and you made it happen.
And we sold it like hotcakes. And
of course you did.
And like the guests that would come back with like tears in their eyes, and I'm not exaggerating, like tear stained eyes, like you're like, you have the ability, you have the financial security to do anything that you want, and you're coming here and doing something. Yeah. And that was like really special. And so,
but that was kind of your vision.
And yeah, and so when you like take your mind out of, and I think it was like $7,000 or something, like I forget what the price was, but
per person.
But yeah, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because it was such a like powerful, transformative experience. And
world, you're not going to get that anywhere else. Yeah,
it's just not possible.
Yeah.
But so like I think that was probably a big achievement of mine down there. Among like other things, like we made $750,000 in 1 month, 1 year, which was a pretty big chunk of change that we were able to make.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple like things where I kind of, going back to like successes and things, like I can kind of hang my hat on that and be like, wow, I'm kind of proud of that. Like I'm really happy that happened. Thank you, by the way. And then in October of, I want to say 2019, it was 2020. No, it was 2019. Ayla and I decided to quit our jobs. We were like, look, we did what we wanted to here. We put away a lot of money. We built, a life that we really want. We're going to buy a van, load up the dogs, and just have our never-ending winter.
Right.
She loved to ski, and I loved to ski. And so we moved into a van.
You chase the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We moved in a van for like 6 months, and starting in October. And, most of October was spent like retrofitting the van. November was spent kind of visiting family, and then come like late November, early December, we just took off, and we hit all the mountains that we wanted to climb, and we hit all the ski lines that we wanted to do, and we slept in parking lots, and we fucking froze, and like I had just this amazing, time. And then, for the past 5 years, I go to Japan every year for 2 to 3 weeks to ski.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did our Japan trip over there, and that's actually where we got engaged. And then came back and started working in Bend, Oregon. And
at Bachelor?
No, it was a golf resort called Tetherow.
Yeah, I know where it's at. I lived in Bend for like 2.5 years or 3 years. So yeah, I know Bend.
Yeah, so we were there for a little over a year, and they brought us on again as like a pair. Yeah. And at that point, like we had a resume that was a mile long.
Obviously, we've just kind of laid it out. Jesus Christ, your resume is amazing.
Yeah, so we had, and obviously it's 2020, so COVID hit.
Yeah, it kind of fucked everything up, didn't it?
Yeah, well, so when COVID was happening, the great thing was when COVID was happening, not great, COVID shouldn't be great, but we were living in the van, and so we were impervious to the shutdown and everything like that. So we were like,
it didn't really change your life as much as it changed a lot of other people.
Because we were unemployed already.
Yes.
And kind of looking back at it, I was like, I guess we didn't get unemployment or anything like that. But we also didn't have any expenses.
Yeah.
Like we had renters in our home, and they were paying our mortgage. And all we had to worry about was paying for food and gas and dog food.
Yeah.
But, it was the four of us, myself, Ayla, our little cattle dog, Freckles, that and then we had a St. Bernard named Tesla.
Oh,
and
that's funny. Tesla, really?
Yep.
That's awesome. I like that.
Tessie girl, she was amazing.
Oh.
And so the four of us were just kind of touring around, and like COVID schmovid, like we were just like
we're still good.
Yeah. And so when we wanted to start working again, we met with Tetherow, and they were like, okay, well, we shut down for COVID. Now we're in the process of reopening. We need 2 people to come on and do that. And so I was the director of lodging, and Ayla was brought on as the director of operations.
Okay.
And so we reopened them basically, and got them in a good place.
The one in Page.
That was the one in Bend.
Bend.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one there. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So that was Tetherow. No affiliation with the Amangiri.
Got it.
Or the Amon Group. Just completely. We left the company on good terms. Worked there for about a year, and I remember I was walking from my office to the it wasn't the pro shop. I was walking to the CFO's office to talk about something, and it was across the kind of the campus they have out there.
Right.
And I was passing by like people in golf carts and people teeing off and all this, and I was like, I do not give a fuck about golf. I don't even like golf. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm running a country club golf resort. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so
it's like fucking Happy Gilmore.
It was bizarre. And I remember our GM, he was always like, Rob, let's go hit him around. And like, this is a coveted golf course. Like, it's kind of like a members type golf course.
Right.
And he was an ex-PGA pro. And he was like, let's go together. I'll give you pointers. Let's do this. And I was there for a year, and I was like, oh yeah,
but
sure.
It just never.
We'll go on Tuesday. And I just never did it.
It didn't appeal to you.
No, I had no desire, and I still don't have any desire to golf. I hate it. I get bored. I get so bored with golf. Oh my god, it's so boring.
Oh my god, that's funny.
And so Ayla and I packed up and we left there, and I got a job up in Idaho. And that was when I was working at Grand Targhee Ski Resort. I was the director of guest services up there. And, that was a really unique place to work. It was...
Where's it at in Idaho?
So it's actually on the west side of the Tetons. And it's actually technically in Alta, Wyoming. But Driggs, Idaho is the closest major city, which is actually right next to Victor.
So it's southeast Idaho, right on the Wyoming border?
You got it.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And and I did that for about 2 years. And I thought I always wanted to work at a ski resort. I thought it was gonna be my like, sort of my magnus opus. I got there and I was like, I can throw away my resume. I'm gonna do this until I become some fucking old gray-haired dude.
Until you become Warren Miller.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to do, and like the cracks in the foundation were there, and I just kept like ignoring them. It was a really toxic place to work. Our owner and general manager was really just a toxic human being, and the culture there was just not conducive for like long-term happiness and success.
Yeah.
And Ayla and I, we bought a big piece of property. We bought 40 acres up in the hills there, and kind of spent all of our money on that. And then we were in the process of building a house, and I was just really unhappy with my job, and Ayla was really unhappy with her job too. And I was like, look, quit your job. I can support us. Just focus on building the house. Just focus on building the family. My paycheck can satisfy all of us. And the thought was that like I would be able to be successful in that, but all it did was put a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah.
And it was like, if I don't excel here, if I don't keep this job, if I don't do everything I can to, I was over 5 departments. I had something like 30 staff.
Oh, Jesus.
I had 5 different managers reporting to me. And I mean, shit, I was 34, 33 at the time. And, it's not young, but it's also not a weathered vet.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And it was right then that I realized that like, at that point, I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know what like toxic intrusive thoughts were. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
I was just saying like, I have to keep this job because if I don't, our life falls apart. We don't build our house. Bank forecloses on our property. We don't like live our life together. And in doing that, I just threw myself into my work, and I became a shell of who I am. And so then, things got worse and worse and worse, and Ayla and I, unfortunately broke up.
Right.
Which, I guess fortunately now, because she has a beautiful life and has started over, and I'm happier than I've ever been, with Ame, and I've taken the time to be able to like work on myself, and from that though, like, we broke up, and I'm in the process of, selling the property so I don't have to pay a mortgage anymore. I'm in the process of like offloading everything. But
so you still have some properties.
Yeah, I have a house in Arizona, and I have 40 acres in Idaho.
Okay, so you want to offload those and kind of reestablish yourself up here.
Exactly.
But you're also helping your family, it sounds like, with this amazing property that you guys have in Carson.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about that, because I've talked to you about it before, but feel free to share that, because it sounds like an amazing experience.
Yeah, so when all of that was kind of happening, it sort of was like the eclipse of my life up to that point, because like I'd always wanted to work at ski resorts. I've always wanted to work at that one in particular. I've always wanted to own property in the forest looking over the valley. Like, I had everything, and I lost everything. And sometimes that's what the universe puts in front of you.
So I had that life experience. We'll talk about it off mic if you want, but I can relate. But anyway, go ahead. Talk about
it. I think it's something that everyone goes through at some point in their life.
Do you think it's like it has to happen? I feel like.
I think that.
Does it happen to everybody?
So coincidentally, Ame posted something on a story today that I took a screenshot of because I love, and it says, and I say that because I'm like pulling up my phone right now.
Yeah. You can have a phone on a podcast. It's
but
fine.
It says rules for being human handed down from ancient Sanskrit, and it's these like 12 rules. But one of it says the second rule is you will learn lessons. Number 3 is there are no mistakes, only lessons. And number 4 is a lesson will be repeated until it is learned.
Yeah.
And it says learn lessons do not end.
Yeah.
And so I took a screenshot of that because it just resonates with me so much, where it's like, maybe it doesn't have to happen to everyone. Maybe somebody some people can find gratitude, can find contentment in what they have, and they don't have to have it taken away to realize what it was. And
Wow.
you know, and I think that, like, for me at least, like, there was a lot of things in my life at that point that I had taken for granted. Like, mental health was one of those things where I was like, I don't need any of that. And it was like the universe being like, we're going to shake the fuck out of this snow globe, and you're going to be so disoriented, you're not going to know anything, you're not going to know yourself. You're not going to, and you'll need to realize, looking back at a lot of the habits and a lot of the things you did previously were really unhealthy. They were unhealthy to you, to your partner, to your staff, to your family, to your coworkers.
Yeah.
And we're going to fix these problems. And the only way we can fix these problems is if we address them. And so, like, when all of that was going down, you know, it was like, I was unhappy with my job. Ayla and I, you know, I'd just broken up with her, and kind of passively, I'm talking to my family about this project they're working on. And so it's my dad, my sister, and her partner had just decided to start a business, opening a glamping resort.
Right.
And you know, my dad had purchased the property. It was 400 acres. It was a timber stand he purchased.
Just north of Carson.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just north of Carson. And he'd purchased it with no other desire other than that he really wanted it. And it was when the timber industry was in the drink.
So it was an honest purchase. I mean,
yeah.
he did it because it was a passion thing.
Yeah. And he was, you know, I can remember when I was little, you know, we lived in the deep of the forest, and I would just go on walks with him, and he would tell me, I'm going to get emotional.
Yeah, you should start crying. I'm sick of being the only one that cries in my podcast, so it should be Rob now.
Oh, here we go. And I guess it's hard because, like, our relationship is unique right now. And so when I think about really pleasant, beautiful times with my dad, it, like, invokes a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
But we would walk through the forest, and he would tell me the Latin names of the trees. We would bend down, and he would say, look at this symbiotic relationship happening between this fern, you know, and this flower. And he would say, look at this root rot happening in this Douglas fir, and look at the way it's being isolated from the rest of the forest.
He was aware of all of that.
Oh, my God.
That's amazing, actually.
I mean, to his core, he's a forester. And so, you know, when he left the Forest Service, I think it really broke his heart, because he's always wanted to do.
But it wasn't what he thought it was going to be, so he had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, I mean, fortunately, the guy's started probably 15 to 20 businesses now, that he's owned, operated, sold, and then started another one. And he's the ultimate entrepreneur. And so he had the ability to buy this 400-acre forest when it became available. And for no other reason, like, the funny thing is he got his business advisor to buy it. Obviously with the company checkbook.
Right.
But when it became for sale, so I feel like it was like 2019, 2020, maybe it was even 2021. Remember the timber
during
industry?
the pandemic.
Yeah, when the timber industry was just awful.
Yeah.
And it was like $90 for a sheet of plywood, 4x8 sheet of plywood.
Yeah.
And like, so what was happening there was a lot of these lumber mills, they own a bunch of land, so they don't have to bid to the National Forest to cut down trees. If they own the land, it's their trees. And so they can cut them down, so they always have raw materials to be cutting and putting on the industry.
Okay.
Well, so when everyone was struggling, and they were too, they were offloading all this land. And so that's how he was able to purchase this.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he bought it, just being like, I don't know what I want to do with it, but I've always wanted to own a forest.
And now that it makes sense to buy it at a lower price, I mean, it's available.
Yeah.
I might as well do it.
Exactly. And so
Okay.
he got, basically, it's like number 2, this guy named Levi. He's like this genius. The guy's amazing. And he's worked for my dad for like 20 years. But my dad, like, saw it was for sale, went up to Levi and was like, I'm too emotionally attached to this. I'm going to give them a blank check because I know this forest. I know this timber stand. It's beautiful. It's perfect. Like, I will spend everything I own just so they'll sell this to me, which is not a good way to negotiate.
So I'm going to let you decide how much I should pay for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
smart.
Yeah. And he knew that. He had that self-awareness. And then Levi was able to negotiate from not a place of emotion, but a place, and so
he was being objective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so fast forward a couple years later, they're like, what are we going to do with this? Like, we have this, it's fun for like driving
It's cool that we
around
have this
on our
property,
dirt
but I
bikes
mean,
and
it's
stuff.
not generating revenue.
It's not doing anything other than just sitting there being a fire hazard. And so
and we're responsible for it if it gets on fire.
Exactly. And so my sister and her partner were like, let's put up some yurts. Let's do this. And then, being my family the way they are, it turned into, we're not going to put up yurts. We're going to buy the biggest yurts that any company makes, and we're going to put in hydronic in-floor heat, washers and dryers, dishwashing stations, Starlink Wi-Fi throughout.
We're going to make this a destination.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so as all of this is happening, they're in the process of getting the permits and getting conditional use. And I'm over here, my life's just crumbling out in the middle of the Idaho tundra.
Oh, it's almost like it was fortuitous.
100%.
Wow.
And it was, and it was, I'll say, when I graduated college, I kind of left and never looked back. I talked to my family once a month, maybe, if I was lucky, probably once every 2 or 3 months. And I saw them once or twice a year, but I was a ghost. I was like, look, I love you guys, but I've got shit to do. And so the thought of moving back to Carson was so foreign to me. But 2 years ago, my dad, we were talking and we were kind of catching up, and it was at a time where I was like, yeah, Ayla and I broke up. And
the timing was right, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the stars lined up.
And he was like, look, we're literally opening up a eco resort, and we are an entrepreneur, a civil engineer, and a heavy equipment operator. We
don't know how to run a resort.
We need you.
Yes.
And just knowing my dad, that's very big for him to say, and that's very huge. And so when he told me that, I didn't even consider the option of coming back. I was basically like, well, maybe I'll move to Sandpoint. Maybe I'll move to Whitefish. Maybe I'll go start a new life somewhere else. It was not even on my radar to come back. And he was like, trust me. He's like, buddy, I want you back here. Join the business. This is a family business.
And you could help us.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't have anywhere to live. And he's like, well, we have a yurt. And so
sounds amazing.
Yep. And so for the last year, I was living in a yurt with no power or running water. And actually, when I first moved back, I lived in the van. I had my Delica.
Right.
And so Freckles and I packed everything up. We rented the house we leased the house out that we were renting, started putting pieces together, sell the properties, and moved back. And honestly, everything that could have happened in my life, that was one thing that I am so grateful for, because when you have your demons and you have lost everything, and you went from having a 6-figure income and a 401k,
right,
and a soon-to-be wife, and trying to start a family,
yeah,
and building a house, and getting everything that you thought you wanted in life taken away from you, and you're alone in the woods in a yurt with no cell reception.
It brings perspective.
You gotta go into that darkness, man.
It's a great reset. It's kind of a, yeah. So you were telling your story about, and I had to stop because growing up, I've always heard about karma. Karma this. I had the wrong impression. I forgot who the fuck it was. It was this random radio guy who has a podcast now that I've listened to for over 15 years. And it was just a one-off where he made this statement that resonated with me. And I never understood what karma was until he said it. Karma is not a punishment. Karma, and it's not even something that's supposed to happen to you. Karma is stuff that happens to you that you can learn from if you're smart enough to learn from it.
Wow.
So people always use karma as oh, you cut me off in traffic and then you sped by me and you got pulled over by a cop. That's karma. No, that's not what karma is.
Yeah.
Karma is shit happens to you And if you're smart enough to learn from it and
Right.
become a better person, that's karma.
Right.
That's what it is. Or if you want to get even more metaphysical, you can say that karma is stuff that is supposed to happen to you so you can grow as a person. It's not a punishment.
Yeah.
It is not a punishment.
No.
It is. You said you had your great reset. I had mine. I got kicked in the fucking head by life, and it changed my perspective. That's karma. But it changed it in a good way because I needed that kick in the head because I was too stupid to figure it out on my own.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, man. Like that's, I would say.
And it is, but it's also about the way you look at it. If you look at struggle, you know, I don't want to quote, is it Hemingway? We're all stronger in the broken places.
Oh, I like that.
That's Hemingway, I think.
Yeah, I really like that.
Through struggle comes enlightenment. I mean, that's what karma is. If you're smart enough to realize that you can grow and learn from the bad times, then you have a better life.
Oh,
but if you look at it as, once again, the universe is kicking me in the ass and I have no chance, it's all about perspective, man. Jesus.
It really is. There's a quote, I saw it on Instagram the other day or something. It was like a video, but it was like I asked for strength, and then I was tested to show where I was weak. I asked for knowledge, and so I was tested so that I could learn.
Yeah.
I asked for patience, and so I was given tests to teach me patience. It was like, if you ask for something, like, I wish I, had this thing. Like, the universe isn't just going to give you the ability to be patient. It's going to do things to develop that patience within you.
Because that's the only way you actually get it. You can't. It can't be a gift. You have to learn it.
Exactly.
And I'm not a religious guy. I don't believe in necessarily that kind of thing. But I also do know that, and science is getting really close to proving this, that everything is actually connected on a subatomic level. There is the stuff that religions throughout history and whatever other beliefs you have are trying to explain can be explained through science. There is a connection on an atomic level to everything, whether you're a plant or a rock or a human or whatever. We're all connected on a subatomic level. We are, and we affect each other.
Agreed.
But it's all about perspective. And what's unique with humans is, although I can't prove this because, dolphins are really fucking smart. Elephants are really fucking smart.
Yep.
We think we're the only species on the planet that actually has self-awareness, but we might not be.
Right.
I kind of feel like my dog has self-awareness. Maybe not to the level that I do, but anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It is about understanding your place in the world, and also just being able to receive experiences and learn from them instead of just feeling it's not a punishment.
Yeah.
And I feel like most religions were created as a way to explain things that humans didn't understand in their naivete,
Yeah.
And so sorry, I'm talking too much. It's your podcast.
I agree completely. I think I feel very in alignment with everything you said.
Yeah.
And I think that there's this sort of eclipse of consciousness happening that we're going to get to experience, and hopefully it's going to happen very soon.
And
this collective consciousness of we are all connected.
We
as much as I'm connected to you, like I'm connected to Reishi in the other room. I'm connected.
The stupid fucking cat.
To that plant.
I'm definitely connected to Freckles. I love that stupid dog.
Oh yeah, dude. He loves his Uncle Ken, man. Well, I'd say, when I look back on everything, you are constantly, again, when you're being shining a light in the dark places of your soul, and again, being alone in the forest with no distractions, right? Your distractions are is your phone.
Yeah.
Your distractions are the TV. Distractions are your work, even distract you from really getting into yourself. And when it's dead silent and you don't have power, you have a battery light, you have a headlamp, you don't have running water. You have water jugs that you filled up at the job site earlier today so you could drink water and brush your teeth tonight.
Yeah.
Everything changes. Your entire perspective changes, and you kind of go into yourself, and I would say, like, if anyone, and I've talked a lot in therapy about this. I started therapy January of last year after I was living on my own for almost a year and just really struggling. And one thing my guy Ruben said is, like, you went through an identity crisis.
Yeah.
You did not know who you were. Everything of you as Rob, everything you thought you were, was completely stripped away.
It was turned upside down.
Yeah, and I'd say anyone going through that, like, get a fucking dog. like my little man, Freckles. Like, I feel bad for everyone else because he's never gonna die. That dog.
Well, I hope not.
No, of
he's
course
fucking
not.
awesome.
I can't even think about that. Like, I saw something on Instagram. It was like, you have 12 summers with your dog. You're like, make him count. Bring him with you. And I was like, 12. I'm like, I can't even imagine a time. And I mean, I don't have to go into detail, but the things that dog has done to save me and just love me and to just, like, he is just the epitome of, like, the best, most beautiful thing I've ever had.
Oh, he's awesome.
And yeah, and he loves me so much with such a big heart, and we do literally everything together. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Like, whenever Ame and I, like, go out and, like, do stuff, we'll go shopping or something like that, I'm like, and I'm not a confrontational person at all. I try to avoid it, and I'm very, like, play by the rules. Like, if the light's yellow, I'm stopping.
Right.
I
right.
That's just kind of who I am. I think maybe for whatever reason, it's just the way I was raised. But, like, if we go into, like, Fred Meyer, Freckles is coming. There is a big sign that says no dogs allowed. But I mean, he becomes my little service dog. And we've had times where people are like, your dog has to leave, and I'm like, he's a service dog. He's not an emotional support dog. We're gonna go along with our business. And so I've definitely been like that Karen. But
nice.
But, like, I mean, he is just such a, like, amazing addition to my life. And he was a res mutt. He was just a little scrappy, dirty, covered in sand and dirt res mutt that a friend owned for a while, and that didn't really work out. And the second I touched that dog, we just bonded. And so when that wasn't a good spot for him, I was like, sweet, I'm snagging him. And then honestly, like, Tesla, our Saint Bernard, really bonded with Ayla. And when the two of us split up, she was like, I don't want to split up the dogs. They're best friends. They've lived, 9 years together.
Right.
We can't do that. But I'm like, it's okay. Like, that's okay. This is going to be a good thing. Just trust me. Just trust me. I'm taking Freckles. You're taking Tesla.
Yeah.
And, Ayla and I are now cordial, and we talk, and we still have a couple assets, and we're still settling things here and there. But, like, whenever we talk, she's like, how's Freckles? I always ask her, how's Tesla?
Yeah, of course.
And, it's great. She'll be like, she's dating someone. She's like, oh, yeah, she and this guy are hanging out, and he's watching her because I'm out of town. And I'm just like, how beautiful is that?
That is cool.
Tesla, like, I can't be there to be her dad. I can't be there to, like, take care of her and wrestle with her and love her. But how amazing is someone else is that she feels
really cool.
that love.
And that's a really healthy way to look at it, by the way.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Ruben's told you. Yes, that's very healthy.
It was hard to arrive at that.
It takes work.
Hard to arrive
it takes
at that.
work. Oh, my God, I know. Because
but in the same
there was something in human evolution that, 100,000 years ago, that instinct probably served a purpose. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore because we have a much safer environment that we live in.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But,
totally.
like, I mean, the way that, like, I get kind of jealous sometimes of, like, Ame and Freckles' relationship because.
Oh, that's actually good to hear because I thought you were getting jealous of me and Freckles' relationship because I love Freckles.
He loves you,
kidding.
man.
I'm totally
I love
kidding.
it. No, but, like, we'll be we'll be in bed and he'll, like, just come up and, like, put his head, like, right next to her head and, like, the two of them together, like. She just, like, will be like, I think he wants to go outside. And I'm like, I think I know my dog. He'll let me know if he wants to go out. And she'll be like, okay. And she'll, like, open the door, and he'll, like, run out and go pee. And I'm like, how do you do
he
that?
is a man. He is a man, by the way.
He is. No. But, so I guess fast forward to, like, wrap things up of my story, like that's pretty much it, man. I came.
No, but you guys have built this place outside of Carson.
Yeah. So we started the glamping resort. We just got it online in May. It's 400 acres. When it's all said and done, we're gonna have like 8 yurts, 3 tree houses.
But it's up
5
and running
safari
now,
tents.
right? Like
It
people
is.
can get online and make reservations.
Yeah. So it's Columbia Gorge Getaways.
Columbia Gorge Getaways. Okay.
And,
.com or
Yeah.
okay.
And then also if they type that into any search engine, they'll find us.
Okay.
But it's the Gorge's first and only glamping resort. And it was really a niche market we wanted to get into because we kind of looked at the market and there's, a dozen different cabin companies and a dozen different little hotels.
Are they all yurts?
So there's 4 bell tents. There's going to be right now there's 4 bell tents, 4 yurts and 8 campsites.
Okay.
And
so you can rent out like a campsite and bring your own tent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And when we get it all said and done, so the yurts right now, we have 1 yurt that's going to be coming online in early August, another one late August, another one early September, another one late September.
Okay.
So these yurts are 720 square feet, and like to its core, it's really been sustainably built. It's been sustainably developed, and it's done in a way that I think that we all are like really proud of. There's 4 business partners, there's 5 staff total, and we've outsourced literally nothing. We've outsourced things that we need to, like plumbing and electric.
Right.
But for the most part, like, we kind of joke it's sort of like farm to table. But for hotels, because when we were clearing out all these yurt sites, or tent sites or campsites or things like that, we had to drop a bunch of trees. And so growing up in the Columbia River Gorge, we joke you're born with a chainsaw in your hand.
Yeah.
Like I've known how to run a chainsaw since I was 12, maybe.
Yeah.
Grew up sharpening chains and, knowing exactly how to like rebuild a carburetor on one.
Yep.
And that's just kind of what you do. That's sort of the passive way of like, I was showing Ame how to like swing a maul the other day. And I'm like, this is what you do. You spread your legs, you go through, and it's,
yes.
But so, all these, it was dense forest, and we had to clear out the dense forest to be able to put the stuff in there. And so we had all these logs on the ground, and we're like, well, we're doing all the internal framing of these yurts, and so why don't we just mill everything ourselves?
Yeah.
And so we're able to like mill. So I, talked us into buying a sawmill because I've always wanted to run a sawmill, and so we're like, we need 4x4s and 4x6s to do all the posts of the.
You guys bought a sawmill?
So we bought a sawmill.
That's awesome.
I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and learned how to run a sawmill.
Thank God for YouTube.
Dude, right? And so everything out there, almost every piece of wood was milled from property that was fell on property.
It's literally self-sustainable. I mean,
exactly.
And every resource was from the property.
Precisely.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, man, we'll have to get you out.
I'm
really
already.
proud of it.
We're gonna do another podcast, but I'm gonna do it at the property.
That would be sick.
That'd be awesome.
That would be so cool. We have so many different
because I don't need Wi-Fi for the podcast. I just need a power outlet.
Well, let's do it.
Yes.
Man.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we Yurt 1 is coming online really soon. Haven't been posting a lot about it just because, it's gonna be fucking incredible. There's a seasonal creek.
But before you start putting out the big push for promotion, you want to make sure you're ready for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this yurt was like, these yurts were supposed to be online literally a year ago, and they've just been getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And it's partially because we're doing everything ourselves.
Yeah.
And so when we break a tool, when we either have to fix it or go buy a new one,
and that delays the project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But all the flooring's in, all the cabinetry's in.
But you have tent sites.
Yep, we have our tent sites.
Just where your guests can rent it for the weekend, and we can set our own tent up.
Yeah, so we've been sold out every weekend this summer.
That's
actually
awesome.
We're 4 bell tents; those are booking like hotcakes, and then all of our 8 tent sites have all been sold out too. And
nice.
And we also do events. We do weddings. We do,
That is so fucking cool,
baby
dude.
showers and birthdays, and we've done a lot of cool stuff out there. So, and I mean, my big passion is, with all this property, there's got to be mountain biking.
Well, yeah.
There's got to be like.
Oh,
hiking
do you want to
and-
set up a course?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I do.
okay.
I do. So I'm gonna do a bunch of mountain
The
biking
wheels
trails.
are already turning. You're planning.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the nice thing is we're using all existing infrastructure, and so what it has is a bunch of logging roads where they would drive log trucks up and down.
Right.
And the other thing that they do is they have these big landings. So these big landings are where they would have like the high lines, and they would yard logs up
Yes.
these spots, and they would load them on the trucks. and
Yes,
drive
of
down.
course.
And so what we've been doing is we're converting those landings into yoga platforms, into ceremony sites.
Oh
into
my God.
Yeah. So
That is such a great
Mhm.
repurposing
yeah, and
of
we're using
existing
mm-hmm,
infrastructure.
we're using all the logging roads too, because
That's
these logging
it's already
roads,
there.
Yeah, have been used, and like they had semi trucks going up and down. And
So it's pretty compacted.
yeah, and so
It's
your
stable.
Prius is gonna be just fine. So
Oh my God. All right. Yes.
yeah,
And let's wrap it up now.
For
and
sure, buddy.
We're going to keep talking after, but let's wrap the
Yeah.
podcast up, and
Yeah.
we're going to do a part 2 at the property.
this was sick, man.
I am super excited,
How
dude.
fun, buddy.
And again, this is why I don't script it, dude. This was a great conversation, and I
Mhm.
learned so much stuff that I didn't know about you. All right.
Appreciate it, buddy.
So yeah, Tom Brady rules. And he just cringed. No Shoes Nation, Kenny Chesney in Seattle on July 13th. It's going to be amazing. Thank
Sick.
you, Rob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you again. That was fun, man. Thank you.